let us see here. Good morning, everybody. Grabbing the link for the patrons over at patreon.com. I am Bear with BearIndependent.com, and I appreciate y'all for being here. This morning, we're going to talk about Grid Down, Texas, and the Freedom Tundra, because there's a lot of that going on right now. We've got one concurrent viewer. Gonna be a good show. 45 concurrent viewers. Oh, here we are. Fabulous. Good morning, everybody. Salty Canuck, Oxendine Clan, Blue Alien, Winston the Spartan, Travis, Christopher. Good morning, everybody. So, let's bounce over here to OBS, turn on screen share. Fabuloso, es muy fabuloso. Show notes, 17 Feb 21, Grid Down, Texas, and the Freedom Tundra. So segment 1 will be Texas Grid Down. There's a lot going on there, and this is probably not news to anybody. In fact, I know we have a very large viewership in Texas. However, we're going to talk about it this morning. Segment 2, Verily, thine hast been Canceledith. Yeah, that'll make sense in a moment. And segment 3, the Great Reset and Systemic Racism. So please hang out with us on this cold, blustery day. For most of us, you probably are stuck at home with nothing better to do anyway. Hillbilly Homesteader, nice surprise on Prepping 101 last night. Great show. I thoroughly enjoyed being on Prepping 101 last night. So shout out to 101, to Lake Ferry, to Raids in the Cage, to North Shore Preparedness, to Christ is the Answer, to Arkansas Living, to everybody else who was on the panel. It was an absolute blast. It was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you're not subscribed to Prepping 101, you probably should be. So I would recommend you go check them out. They do an excellent job with their live streams. So go give them a shout out. Go say hey. Shalom and good morning, Mad Celt. Good morning to everybody in the chat and the Blue Wrenches. Let's get into the show. So segment 1, Texas Grid Down. Somewhere, I have a report. There it is. The extreme coast-to-coast winter storm rolling across the states has stressed the power grid, causing many areas to institute rolling blackouts to cope as some power grids buckle beneath the high loads. Tens of millions have found themselves facing sub-zero temperatures. Snow has even fallen on the shores of Galveston, Texas, the Gulf Coast. Millions have lost power or utilities that rely on power. In Texas, at least 2 cities, Kyle and Buda, announced a dangerously low water supply due to a power outage at the Guadalupe Blanco River Authority. The best words, tremendous. Authorities asked that residents suspend water use until further notice. Between 2.5 and 3.5 million Texans were left without power after wind turbines were frozen. That number is up, I believe. Multiple states have issued emergency declarations, such as in Kansas, where Governor Laura Kelly issued a state of disaster emergency because of the wind chill and stress on utilities, including oil and gas. She asked residents to conserve power and gas. This extreme weather event spells a double or triple whammy for some. A number of families have found themselves at home without power in extreme temperatures at the same time as one or more family members fight COVID. Others in similar situations are elderly, disabled, or ill with other viruses. Technicians simply cannot help everyone at once during such massive impacts. The U.S. has seen hurricanes, tornadoes, a pandemic, and now an extreme winter storm within a single year. Each of these events has explicitly demonstrated why being prepared for unfortunate circumstances is absolutely vital. Every one of us is our own first line of provision and protection. And that's something that we really need to harp on. Not as in, I told you so. Not as in, damn it, why didn't you listen to me? But is there a better time to evangelize about preparedness than right now? I don't believe that there is. And this is proof that basic preparedness covers a myriad of potential issues that may arise. So, from UPI.com, Texas power shortage leads to rolling blackouts and a winter storm. And of course, here we've got a guy in a nice jacket with a nice car and line for a bunch of propane tanks to be filled. 16 FEB, which was yesterday, from UPI, officials from a utility that manages power for most customers in Texas said Tuesday that a lack of energy supply left millions of Texans without power and freezing temperatures. Yes, we're aware. In a news conference addressing the outages, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, which manages about 90% of the state's power for 26 million customers, said the state's energy supply fell short by about 45,000 megawatts. That's a lot. And that it is instituting rolling outages across the system as it works to restore power. So, interestingly enough, and we will touch on this a bit right now, and we'll see more later from Strategic Intelligence at the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. One of the things that the big they are interested in is microgrids. Now, the way that they want to go about microgrids is far different than the way that I think we should go about microgrids, but it illustrates the point that just because our enemy, air quote, our opposition, has certain lines of effort, doesn't necessarily mean that we are at odds with that particular line of effort. I think microgrids are a good idea. However, I'm going to take that term and apply my own interpretation to it. What I mean by a microgrid is that you should have, where you are, some type of independent power generation back up to the grid. Whether this is solar or wind or propane generation or waste to energy. If you have enough people in a community for a small waste to energy plant, that's a phenomenal idea, but something to generate power locally where you are, that you own, not that somebody else owns, that's yours. Now, Texas is getting a lot of garbage right now from a lot of people because the wind turbines are frozen up. Yes, they are. As somebody that installed a lot of those wind turbines in Texas, let me tell you that there are turbines that are operating right now in Ontario, Canada, just fine. The difference is the ones in Canada and elsewhere in the northern tier have been winterized. They're designed to deal with issues like this. The ones that are in Texas are not designed to deal with sub-freezing temperatures for extended periods of time and record-setting snowfall because it's Texas. When we did Sarita Gulf wind along the Gulf on the King Ranch and Kennedy Ranch, it was 118 degrees in the shade on the average summer day. And there is no shade because it's nothing but mesquite bushes about 5 foot tall and sugar sand and rattlesnakes. Yeah. It's not the type of place where typically one would think we better make sure that when it's negative 20 with the wind chill and icing that these turbines are going to run. Was that an oversight? Perhaps, but there wasn't a historic precedent at the time to even consider it. So lessons learned, but we're seeing this with the utilities, all types of utilities around Texas right now. The water systems aren't designed to handle the deep freeze. The natural gas and propane systems aren't designed to handle a deep freeze. The infrastructure in general isn't designed to deal with cold because it's Texas. Texas is not known for extended periods of sub-freezing temperatures. They are known, for example, I remember one year specifically, it was the 100 days over 100. There was ended up being 117 days in a row that the high every day was over 100 degrees. And so this is not to point fingers at anybody or an I told you so. It's simply to point out that unexpected things happen, and we are our own first responders. We are our own first line of defense, and we need to be prepared as possible to literally and figuratively weather whatever storm may come. So from weather.com, Texas officials warn of carbon monoxide poisoning at least 17 deaths tied to winter storm Yuri. Now, it's interesting that they named it Yuri. It's a very Jewish name, but it's also a very Russian name. I wonder if that was intentional or not. I'm just throwing that out there. At a glance, the impacts of deadly winter storm Yuri linger in Texas as the storm heads towards the northeast. More than 3 million homes and businesses are still without power in Texas. Hundreds of thousands of households have been warned to boil water because of the blackouts. And this article goes on from here. At least 17 deaths have been attributed to the storm across, across the South and into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Several million homes and businesses had no power Tuesday morning, 24 hours ago. In Texas alone, more than 4 million customers still had no electricity Tuesday morning. Some have been without power for more than 24 hours after generating stations went offline early Monday. One Texas utility warned that the grid manager was unable to predict when grid conditions will stabilize. All customers are urged to be prepared for continued extended outages. An estimated 75% of Texas power generation capacity was impacted. About 45,000 megawatts of electricity was offline. Texas has about 680 power plants in the state, and 70 to 80 of those were offline. Now, primary generation typically comes from generating steam via heat, and that heat is generated from coal, or number 2, diesel oil, fuel oil, or natural gas, or methane, or nuclear power, or trash, waste to energy, or whatever. But you use the heat to create steam. The steam turns turbines. The turbines generate electricity. The problem with that is all of those systems require some type of coolant to be flowing through the system so that it doesn't overheat. Well, imagine you had a pipe freeze and burst in your house. Maybe a 3/4 inch CPVC pipe like the one my wife was working on yesterday, because hashtag it don't get this cold for this long in Oklahoma, bro. Okay, and also hashtag badass plumber wife. Well, that little 3/4 inch CPVC pipe is about 4% the scale of the coolant pipes that are flowing in and out of these power stations. When they freeze, you don't just unfreeze them. You don't just fix them. To say anything of the extenuating circumstances of actually having to perform the scope of work in sub-zero temperatures with equipment that may not run, with materials that can't be transported because of the road conditions, yada, 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 yada. So these are cascading effects, and it gets back to independence from the system. We talk about this all the time at this channel, but we want to be as independent from the system as possible, because when the system has a hiccup, everybody catches the flu, right? So for many years here, we've been discussing the fragility of the power grid, of the electrical grid, and many have brought up, well, Texas has its own grid. It does, but that grid is interconnected. The reason it's interconnected is because that Texas is a net energy exporter. Most of the time. Right now it's not, but most of the time Texas exports, makes more energy than they use. So the Texas grid is interconnected to the national grid through Oklahoma. I've built a large portion of that grid myself, and with a bunch of good guys and girls out there in the middle of nowhere making things happen that engineers thought wasn't possible, to get that power out of Texas and into the national grid. But the way that these transmission lines are built, they're built in such a way that in certain instances, if they come offline, they don't just go online again. And so cascading failure points, which is why independence, bare independent, is a good thing. Having your own solar array, your own wind turbine, which on a personal scale, on a residential scale, a light industrial scale, or an agricultural scale makes sense, because we have the capacitor technology, aka batteries, to make use of that infrastructure locally, microgrid, right where we are at, rather than on a utility scale where renewables will always be relegated to secondary generation until our capacity technology increases, so that we can store the power that they make when the sun is out or when the wind is blowing, and then trickle it back into the grid when there's a demand. That's why steam and fossil fuels and nuclear are the primary generation, because they're very easily scaled. If you need more power, you just open up a valve, or you kick on another burner, boom, more power. Doesn't quite work that way with wind and solar. So from KHOU.com, Texas Agriculture Commissioner issues a red alert for food supply chain. Christian at the Ice Age Farmer was talking about this morning. And by the way, congratulations to Christian on hitting 200,000 viewers on YouTube. And just like our channel, he's been having to fight the good fight against the algorithmic robots at YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed to the Ice Age Farmer, please go check him out. And also, if you're not supporting him on Patreon, I would highly recommend it. You know, $1 a month. It allows his channel to stay online, and it creates another contact point for you to be able to find real good actionable information and intelligence if when YouTube decides that what he has to say is no longer allowed per community guidelines. It's the same reason that we use Patreon as a backup for Bear Independent. You just go to Patreon, search for Bear Independent, you'll find us there. It's $1 a month or $10 a year. And it's not a I love me so you should love me too page. There's between 30 and 100 exclusive, valuable, equitable posts per month at Patreon, including all the stuff that is algorithmically unfriendly here on YouTube is posted over there. So your firearm stuff, your prepper stuff, your deeper political discussions is all found over on Patreon. So from KHU.com, Texas Agriculture Commissioner issues a red alert for food supply chain. Quote, "We're looking at food supply chain problems like we've never seen before, even with COVID-19, Texas Ag Commissioner Sid Miller said." And here you've got some icicles on some fruit trees in Edinburgh, Texas. And this article is by Jay Wallace, WFAA. Farmers and ranchers across Texas are having to waste millions of dollars of products, according to Texas Ag Commissioner Sid Miller. Miller issued a statewide warning Tuesday for the agriculture community and Texas food supply chain. As Texas Agriculture Commissioner, I'm issuing a red alert regarding agriculture and our food supply chain here in the state of Texas. Food scarcity is a thing. And I truly believe that we are going into a grand solar minimum. I don't know if we're going to have another ice age. I don't know. And I'm certainly not trying to fearmonger, but I am saying that it has been scientifically demonstrated that during periods of lower solar activity, the Gulf Stream shifts. And we get less and less predictable weather, which is going to result in things like what we're seeing now in Texas and Oklahoma, elsewhere, 14 states rationing power right now. And as we just discussed, the utilities and infrastructure in those areas are not built in such a way to be able to withstand it. And so I'm thinking long-term strategic on our homestead. What do we need to do going forward to be better prepared to deal with things like this? Weather events, extreme cold weather events. But also, what do we need to do to continue to produce as much of our own food as possible? Because while, especially with the most recent political events going on here in the United States, there's been many people, myself being one of them, that have been concerned at times that the accessibility to food could be weaponized against people, as has been done in the past by myriad tyrannical governments around the globe. What if there's no food to get in the first place? Now it's not just an availability or an accessibility issue, it's a supply chain issue. As Sid Miller here, Texas Ag head dude, is talking about, the commissioner of Texas Agriculture. So if there's no food to get, it doesn't matter whether or not they're going to let you get it, which is why every one of us should be taking steps to produce as much of our own food as possible. Back to the article. Quote, "I'm getting calls from farmers and ranchers across the state reporting that the interruptions in electricity and natural gas are having a devastating effect on their operations. Some dairy operations have been forced to dump $8 million worth of milk every day because the plants that process the milk don't have any power." He also said one of the main items grocery stores aren't getting is their dairy products. Store shelves are already empty. Preparedness. Stack it to the rafters, baby. Miller said, "We're looking at a food supply chain problem like we've never seen before, even with COVID." Miller asked Governor Greg Abbott to designate agricultural producers and processors as critical infrastructure. You think? Food is critical, bro. that must be provided gas and electricity to continue operations. He said they should be prioritized like hospitals, first responders, fire, and police. Miller said while the temperatures will eventually rise, he worries about the long-term damage if some type of action doesn't happen soon. Agreed. Do we still have a live stream? We have a live stream. 1,032 people here. Only 320 thumbs ups. Please throw us a thumbs up. That helps us in the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We do live streams Thursday evenings now. And yeah, a lot of content here. Over 3,000 videos and live streams between YouTube and Patreon. So go ahead and consider subscribing. We'd appreciate it if you would. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Please continue with those thumbs up. That helps us. Keeping it real. Thank you. Cody Willis, good morning. Just Plain James, good morning. Sean Williams, Nunya Beeswax, Cat is here. Dudley, good morning, brother. Good morning to all the Blue Wrenches. And yeah, like I said, you can find us on Patreon. And also, please send your intelligence to intel@bearindependent.com. If you go to bearindependent.com, you'll see this is what pops up right here. Of course, our handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever first aid kits. But then you can hit contact right over here, and that'll take you to this form where you can drop your intel to the Dance Monkeys, our research team, intel@bearindependent.com. So if you have actionable intelligence that you'd like to provide to us, I'd love to hear it. Especially if you're out there in the frozen freedom tundra right now. What are you experiencing firsthand, and how are you dealing with it? I'd love to be getting those reports from y'all in the Bear Nation. What are you experiencing firsthand, and how are you dealing with it? Because this is an exchange that we do this together, Bear Nation. So please hit us at intel@bearindependent.com or use the contact page at Bear Independent. And also your silver linings, the good news, what's going on out there in the world. Send that to us, please. So from dallasnews.com, get out of here, pop up. Geez Louise. Texas is just not prepared. North Texans without power search for ways to stay warm. Texas is just not prepared is an adequate, descriptive headline. And of course, you know, we talk about preparedness here. We've been talking about it all morning. We've been talking about it for the last 3 years at this channel, which has grown exponentially thanks to the Most High and thanks to y'all. So we appreciate you. But preparedness is not something that necessarily requires you to be a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. We are normal people. We are normal people, but we can see the fragility of the system. And so if the system is fragile, that means we have to take as much personal responsibility as we can to be as prepared as we can for things like this when they happen. These are not flukes. Weather events are not flukes. Depending on where you live, you could have a mudslide, a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, a volcano. Yeah, volcanoes for real, bro. A winter storm. And you can't get food for a couple of weeks maybe, or no power, no heat. Don't be dependent upon the system. Because when you are, and it goes away, so do you. And that's a problem. Major problem. Back to the article from Dallas News. Millions of Texans were forced to sleep through single-digit temperatures Monday night and into Tuesday as the Electric Reliability Council of Texas began rotating outages in an effort to preserve the power grid amid a record-breaking winter storm. Those rotating outages began at 1:25 a.m. Monday in some residential neighborhoods throughout the state. But for many North Texans, electricity remained off for hours at a time, and Encore Electric Delivery asked all its customers to be prepared to be without power for an extended period of time. Get out of here, pop up. With another snowstorm forecast to arrive Tuesday night into Wednesday, yesterday into today, thousands of residents resorted to other methods of staying warm. To be clear, here in Oklahoma, the first wave of storms that came in Sunday night was forecasted to be 10 to 12 inches, no, 8 to 12 inches. And we got 3. And then the storm that rolled in last night here was forecasted to drop another 6 to 8 inches, and we got another 1.5 inches. So, and maybe a little bit more in a couple of places. So where I am right now has 4 to maybe 6 inches of snow on the ground. So hashtag upstate New York born and raised, 4-wheel drive pickup truck, es no problemo, broheim. But for a lot of the people around here, it's literally debilitating. They can't get out and move. A half a foot of snow grinds an entire region to a halt. That's a big deal. And while it is unheard of in this area, I don't think it will remain unheard of going forward. Like I said, I do believe the grand solar minimum is a factor here. And this is not some tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. It's actual data from the sun. You know, that giant flaming ball of gas, you know, up in the sky, way out over there. Yeah, that thing. It's not as active as it has been, and we know that it goes through cycles, and we know that those periods of lower solar activity lead to a much more flexible Gulf Stream, Arctic air, and warm air intermingling, creating incredible storms like this, lower overall temperatures, and just in general, increased climate chaos. Here we are. Here we are. Proof is in the pudding, right? Here we are. So, some people like Jerome Marshall, 33, stuck it out in their homes and hoped power would eventually come back. Good for you, Jerome. Marshall said he had no power. The thermostat inside his home read 32 degrees when he woke up Tuesday morning. I got a migraine while I was asleep at some point, he said. I'm still having residual effects from that and probably came about because of stress from the cold. Well, let's look at this. This is not adequate winter clothing, by the way. He does have a sweet TikTok face mask, though, so that's cool. But this is not adequate winter clothing. Now, I realize, again, it's Texas. Most people don't have adequate winter clothing, but please get some. Basic preparedness. If there's no heat in your home, you throw everybody in the king-size bed in the master bedroom, and you crawl under the blankets and you snuggle up, and you will stay warm. You will stay warm. And it goes on from here at the Dallas News with a bunch of stories of individuals that are supposed to endear us to their situation as they lament their current state without power and water. And that's exactly the situation that they find themselves in. All of which is to say, the more independent you are from the system, the less you have to rely on it, right? And so here we see some people that are at a warming center and the Ruth Jackson Center in Grand Prairie, a place that had power and the lights on, so these people have nowhere else to go, so they're here. And so it's awesome that they have a place to go. That's cool. That's good. That's humanitarian. That's charitable. That's wonderful. But do you really want to have to do that, or would you like to just chuck another couple pieces of wood into the wood stove or whatever? Okay. So Texas is just not prepared. One of the things I want to talk to you about, refugemedical.com. This is our company. We own this American company. We produce this and this, the bare fac and the bare minimum, handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever. You've got myriad different things that you can find here at Refuge Medical. Medical first aid kits, from stomp bags, smash kits, public access casualty kit, mass casualty kits, Cub Pro, Cub Kit, Crash Kit, the Combat Lifesaver Kit, which is military specification contents, bare minimum, bare fac, and the Adventure Kit, which is back in stock. The Adventure Kit is absolutely awesome. Everything from, Band-Aids to bullet holes it'll cover. It's got all the contents that are in a bare fac, plus a suturing kit, wound closure, the OTC meds, all the things. But when it comes to preparedness, think about right now what's going on out there in the world. There's a lot of folks who have been wrecking their vehicles lately. And this is in no way an attempt to take advantage of the fact that people are having horrendous wrecks. But I would like to illustrate the point that this kit right here, the Bear Fac, FAK, first aid kit, I'm Bear Fac, handled. This kit has saved 13 lives. It's deployed around the world. It's on 4 continents with 4 branches of the armed forces. And the first life that it saved was a motor vehicle accident where a guy wrecked his car, and bad wreck, and somebody responding to the incident who was driving by ran up to the car, and this dude had snapped his femur in his leg. And when the femur broke, it severed the femoral artery in his leg, and there was blood spurting out everywhere. Now, you've got about 45 seconds with a heavy femoral artery bleed before you pass out, and about a minute and a half before you die. And so the gentleman who had his Bear Fac ran back to his car, grabbed a tourniquet, tourniqueted that guy's leg, and saved his life. It took EMS 7 minutes to respond. It takes 90 seconds to bleed out and die. And the EMS told him, you absolutely saved this guy's life. And so while we do have and we do produce all the kits for the high-speed tactical stuff, you know, the snooping and pooping out in the woods and doing the door-kicking multicam stuff with my 10.5-inch barreled AR pistol with my PEC 15 and my blah, blah, all that stuff. Yeah, we have stuff for all of that, and I think it's cool too, but it's probably a lot less applicable for most people, okay? The Bear Fac, while you can run it on your war belt, your plate carrier, your chest rig, your rucksack, whatever, there's a lot of people that run these in their cars. Police departments that we work with run these in their cruisers because it has everything that you can see here on the screen. You pop this thing open, right, and you pull this out, and now you're holding in your hand a purpose-built kit designed to deal with everything in the March algorithm. Massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, circulation, head injuries, and hypothermia. Okay, so you've got your surgical tape here. You've got a pressure dressing here. You've got a mini roll of duct tape because duct tape sticks to everything, including blood, sweat, and tears. You've got a legit decompression needle from North American Rescue. You've got a Sharpie. You've got a tourniquet here, a genuine cat tourniquet, combat application tourniquet, military specification, 18,000 applications of this tourniquet in the last 20 years in the global war on terror. 0 people have lost limbs because of tourniquets. This thing has saved thousands of lives. Genuine North American Rescue cat tourniquet. A pair of nitrile gloves because if it's wet and not yours, don't touch it. Back here in the Bear Fac, you've got your shears. Genuine North American Rescue EMT shears. You've got your nasopharyngeal airway. You've got 2 5x9 gauze pads, and you've got 2 high-fin chest seals because you got 2 lungs. And if you have something like a gunshot wound to the chest, bullets tend to go through things, not in things. There's exceptions to every rule, and then down here in the bottom, you've got, I'm not even going to unpack it. You've got all the stuff. You've got Quick Clot in here. You've got Curlix. You've got rolled gauze, compressed gauze, a survival blanket, BZK wipes, a triangle bandage, gauze pads, fold flat, duct tape is in here. The whole kit. It's everything you need. It's $220, handmade, made in America, guaranteed forever. We have these in stock. Shipping time is 1 to 2 weeks right now. And it was 1 week until Snowpocalypse 2021. So we've got a quick turnaround on these. They're guaranteed forever. If you break it, I'll replace it. And if you use your kit to save a life, I will replace the contents for free. Cost you nothing. Okay? So you can get these at refugemedical.com or bearindependent.com. Please use promo code BEARNATION. One word, BEARNATION. That'll save you 10% on the kit. And then also, cool, I got the thing. I don't know how to use it. Well, we have myriad upcoming Stop the Bleed classes. One is coming up in the Nashville, Tennessee area, and one is coming up in the Cartersville, Georgia area, and we will be announcing the dates for Indianapolis soon. We're still trying to find a venue in Indy that will work with us to do what we want to do. But if you have no idea how to use this kit, you can attend one of these Stop the Bleed classes. The dates are up at Refuge Medical, and the Cost of the class includes a North American Rescue TCCC trainer kit, which will be retained by the student. This allows the student to train their friends and their loved ones with the same tactics and techniques after this class is completed. So force multiplication. You keep your training stuff so you don't have to take your brand new IFAC and destroy it at class. And then now we gotcha. You got to buy some more medical stuff from us. No, the cost of the class includes a trainer kit, which retails for $115. And it has your trainer tourniquet in it that looks something like this. This is a trainer tourniquet. It has your chest seals, your decompression needle, your combat gauze, your pressure dressings, your eye shield. It's got everything in it so that you can take that home and then teach your people after class how to do the things that you just learned how to do and keep your IFAC, your individual first aid kit, intact. So all that's at refugemedical.com. We appreciate you supporting our small business. Literally, this is how we feed our children and pay our bills. And we really, really, really appreciate the Bear Nation supporting us. So promo code Bear Nation. Bless y'all. Now, moving on to segment 2. Verily, thine hast been canceledith. We still got a live stream? Anybody here? 1,098 people, 642 likes. A1P, good morning. Mad Kelt, Dudley, Network Prepper. Hey, Prepping 101 is here. Good morning, brother. Shouted you out earlier. Great channel, Prepping 101. If you're not subscribed, you should be. Really, really, really good live streams that they do over there. So, please go check them out. Now, moving right along. Verily, thine hast been canceledith. William Shakespeare ditched by woke teachers over misogyny and racism. By Lee Brown from the New York Post. English teachers across the country are replacing William Shakespeare's works in their curriculum with modern, diverse, and inclusive voices. Shakespeare, thou hast been getting canceled. An increasing number of woke teachers are refusing to study the Bard, accusing his classic works of promoting misogyny, racism, homophobia, classism, anti-Semitism, and misogynoir. What the flying F-bomb is that word? A slew of English literature teachers told the school library journal how they were ditching the likes of Hamlet, Macbeth, and Romeo and Julieta. Oh wait, that's a cigar. Romeo and Juliet, to instead make room for modern, diverse, and inclusive voices. Shakespeare was a tool, quote, Shakespeare was a tool used to civilize black and brown people in England's empire, insisted Shakespeare scholar Ayanna Thompson, a professor of English at Arizona State University. Also, I love all people regardless of race, color, and creed, and I hate the fact that that caveat is required before I state that it's stupid that we now capitalize the word black. We're going to be inclusive. Let's capitalize the word Asian. Let's capitalize the word Caucasian. Let's capitalize. Who cares? Who cares? This is stupid. And it's indicative, honestly, to me, of a society that is so lush with so much largesse that we now have to create problems to be upset about. We have so much free time because of how prosperous and profitable our society has become that we have the ability to not starve to death and go work the field with our hands, that we can sit around and pontificate about how Shakespeare was a tool used to civilize black and brown people in England's empire. STFU. You know, I don't bring this up often, but I'm a quarter American Indian, Cherokee, Choctaw, and Creek. My people, Trail of Tears, homie. How do you think we got to Oklahoma? The white man. Do you ever hear me complain about it? No. You know why? Because what happens, happens. It's done. It's done. Can we learn lessons from it? Absolutely. Should we repeat something like that? No. Does it directly impact my life today? No. Nope. You know why? because we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, black, white, red, yellow, whatever, all men are created equal and endowed by their creator, not governments, not men, not institutions, not think tanks, not jurisdictions, by their creator, Father God, with certain inalienable rights. And among these, here's a few of them, not all of them, among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know what I'm spending my time on? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because all that stuff that happened yesteryear, a century or two ago, while it was bad, and it certainly informs today, it has zero direct correlation on my life at this point. You can sit around and piss in your pants and whine about where you are, or you can get off your ass and go make something happen. But you can't do both at the same time. And unfortunately, we've institutionalized the art of sitting around and pissing in our pants and calling it learning. Teachers, back to the article from the New York Post, teachers also need to, quote, challenge the whiteness, end quote, of the assumption that Shakespeare's works are, quote, universal, insisted Jeffrey Austin, who is head of Michigan High School's English Literature Department. Okay, so the guy who's in charge of the English Literature Department has an issue with a guy who is the foundation or a cornerstone of English literature? STFU. Former Washington State public school teacher Claire Brunke told SLJ she banished the bard from her classroom to, quote, stray from centering the narrative of white, cisgender, heterosexual men, end quote. If your children are still in public school, get them out. Get them out. Get them out. Kyle at Survival Prepping for Normal People on his Patreon page, whom I'm a patron of, did a repost yesterday talking about the origins of compulsory public schooling. Fascinating. Another channel that I would encourage you, if you're on Patreon, go drop $1 or more with Kyle at Survival Prepping for Normal People, because he has a very unique take on the world, and he's also constantly dropping stuff like that. The idea that compulsory public schooling is designed to educate children is a complete lie. It's designed to create drones. In their own words, they admit this. It's designed to create drones that will be good model citizens of the system and not actually question authority and not actually have unique thoughts. In fact, they go as far to say that their goal is not to produce doctors and lawyers and theologians and inventors and engineers, because we already have plenty of them. What we need are drones. The former Washington State public school teacher, Claire Brunke, told SLG she banished the bard from her classroom to stray from centering the narrative of white, cisgender, heterosexual men. STFU. I've had enough of this article, moving right along. So, in light of all this woke-ism, let's see, what's our Zoom here? 150, good. Also from the New York Post, an opinion piece by Glenn H. Reynolds. The French are absolutely right to say no thanks to U.S. wokeism. Listen, France knows that this garbage is ridiculous. France gets it. They're from the outside looking in going, no thanks. Please do not export your ridiculousness to our country. Right here from the article. It's an American export that prudent Europeans want to keep out. They've paid close attention to the product's development in the United States, and they've determined that it's toxic. They're afraid it will damage their kids. undermine their society, and threaten civilization. I agree. And we're going to put a quick stop on this article right here so that I can editorialize for a minute. How do you combat this? Well, we just talked about, don't be part of the problem. If your kids are being indoctrinated at public schools and you don't like what you see, stop it. Don't fund woke-ism. Don't support it, and be able to articulate the talking points as to why it's bad. We can get into a shouting match. You're stupid. Yeah, okay, got it. But a hallmark of real wisdom is being able to articulate the side of an argument that you don't agree with, yet you understand it. You have to understand what the alternate viewpoint is so that you can combat it. Just like if this was a military operation, we would want to know as much about the enemy as possible. Who are they? What do they do? What are their motivations? How do they operate? What do they think? What is their ideological identity? What are their ideal end states? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their lines of effort? So that we can develop a picture of what we're up against and then figure out how to counter that. It's one of the things we're going to talk about in the third segment. How do we combat this? How do we counter this? We have to be able to, and we have to be willing to, when opportunities present themselves, to stand up and say, no, that's stupid, and I'm not funding that. Because I'll tell you what, if enough people, over here, back to this article, if enough people said, you know what, I'm no longer going to send my children to Arizona State University because you have somebody there that is absolutely bat crap crazy. I will not fund that. They'd feel it in their pocketbooks. One could take it the next step further and say, you know what, we need an alternative to Arizona State University. State University, huh? I wonder if your taxpayer dollars are paying for this garbage as well. We need an alternative to that. Yeah, and when you find one, pour into it. Support alternative voices because the mainstream, the system is filled with garbage. And it's designed in such a way to get people to acquiesce, to be a good drone. Just put the mask on. Just take the vaccine. Just get on the bus. Just work in the internment camp. It's a relocation camp, not a re-education camp. At what point do you stop and go, no, I'm good. I'm good, thanks. You enjoy the fruits of your own stupidity. I will be over here flourishing due to the blessing of my Creator and my own blood, sweat, and tears, working towards a common goal with people that I love. You see the differentiation here? Big picture macro versus small picture micro. It's personal responsibility. We cannot continue to pour into people like this. Give them no revenue. Cut them off. France. Back to France. French President Emmanuel Macron, which this guy is no bastion of conservatism. This dude, French President Emmanuel Macron, and his ministers view the threat as existential. As the New York Times reported, they think wokeism, quote, fuels secessionism, gnaws at national unity, abets Islam, attacks France's intellectual and cultural heritage. Academics disagree, of course, but who cares? Academia is not something that holds any water with me. Because what does Yeshua say? What does Jesus say? You shall know them by their fruits. Look at the fruit that they're bearing. Their fruit is bad. You know? And let's see. Oh, it just so happens. Oh, I got one of these. What is this? Oh, it's a Bible. Huh, look at that. John 15. Yeah, real quick from the good word. John 15. This is Jesus speaking, Messiah. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away. Every branch in me that bears no fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, so that it bears more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Stay in me, and I stay in you. As the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself unless it stays in the vine, so neither you unless you stay in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who stays in me and I in him, he bears much fruit, because without me you are able to do nothing. If anyone does not stay in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. I'll go a little bit further. If you stay in me, and my words stay in you, you shall ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done for you. In this my Father is esteemed. If you ask in his name for the glory of his Father, our Creator, you'll receive it. Not if you want a new Lambo. That's not what this says. In this my Father is glorified, esteemed, that you bear much fruit, and you shall be my taught ones. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Stay in my love. If you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. Oofda. I thought that was done away with. Even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. Straight from the mouth of Jesus. Here's the point. You bear bad fruit, you get pruned and thrown into the fire. Says Jesus. So, yeah, I know it's not the hippy-dippy, lovey, tie-dye, kumbaya, my Lord. It's not that guy. Interestingly enough, all one has to do is actually read their Bible, and you realize that that guy is a modern-day construct of the Christian church. He doesn't exist. He never did. You can love somebody and have compassion for somebody without being a sopping wet P word. But I digress. So the point here is, these people are bearing bad fruit. You shall know them by their fruits. If they're bearing bad fruit, we should have nothing to do with them at all. And this is systemic. This is global. This is worldwide. If you're bearing bad fruit, why are we even engaging? Back to the report. Woke culture is continuing to infect the country post-election. The host of the TV series The Bachelor, Chris Harrison, stepped down after an uninformed interview in which he, quote, spoke in a manner that perpetuates racism, end quote. What was his crime against society? He defended a contestant who once attended an antebellum plantation-themed fraternity formal. Remember that the classic Gone with the Wind was a victim of cancel culture last year. William Shakespeare is now being thrown out by the wokeist teachers due to misogyny, racism, homophobia, classism, anti-Semitism, and misogynoir. Even the U.S. Navy now has a special task force designed to address, quote, racism, sexism, and other destructive biases and their impact on naval readiness. I don't know if you can see my face right now, but if you could see my face right now, you'd see disgust. Do not people understand, and clearly they don't, because it's the antithesis of their agenda, that merit matters. The military was designed to be a meritocracy. He or she that is best suited for the job does the job. Why? Because that contributes to overall readiness, that contributes to combat effectiveness, that attributes to actually being able to obtain the goal by having the best people in the best positions to get the job done. It's a meritocracy. Merit matters. At least to me, merit matters. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care if you're tall or short or fat or skinny or brown or black or white or red or yellow or green or blue or purple. Well, that's not even nice because there are no brown or the green, purple, yellow, red. Shut the up with this garbage. If you can do the job, you're good to go. If you can't do the job, GTFO. In all facets of life, I don't care. Meritocracy. Can you do? Are you capable of performing the scope of work? If the answer is yes, you're good to go. If the answer is no, you're not good to go. And we don't, by the way, redefine the scope of work to make up for the fact that you are incapable of performing it, lowering standards for inclusivity. That's real nice. This whole thing is garbage. But unfortunately, these are symptoms of a failing society. That's where we are. OODA loop, adjust your OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. That's where we are. The system is failing. Now, there's good news here because while civilizations come and go, people have endured forever. And I would submit that the people that have endured are those that have been the most prepared so that they can semper gumby, improvise, adapt, overcome, deal with whatever may arise. So, back to basic preparedness. Gives you options. It allows you to be proactive, not reactive. Because as this woke culture continues to grow legs, guess who's going to be targeted? Everybody. And if you're within the sound of my voice, you're part of everybody, which means that, again, there's going to be a widening gap in between the individual and the system. So not only is the system unreliable, it's also unfriendly. And so we all act with our own best interests at heart. I would just continue to encourage you to act with your own best interest at heart and be as prepared as possible for whatever may come. And this matters whether it's a snowstorm in Texas or the Panamanian paratroopers land a brigade in the hayfield across from your street and you're like, oh no, here they come, what do we do? It doesn't matter. It gives you options. It allows you to execute on your own convictions, to execute your own personal responsibility, rather than being another cog in the machine, rather than being another square peg pounded into a round hole, rather than being another drone for the system on the hamster wheel of life, wondering why you feel so tired and so unfulfilled, because you're not doing what's good for you. You're doing what's good for somebody else. And frankly, you're not living according to biblical principles. But I digress. So point is, France doesn't want America's wokeism, and neither do I. Maybe we could export it to maybe the South Pole. There's nobody there. There's a handful of people there. Nazis from World War II, maybe. We'll just send them to the South Pole. By the way, I have a phenomenal argument, which is completely unrelated to what we've been talking about, but me and Brother Forrest were talking about this the other day. Hey, we still got a live stream? We sure do. 1,300 people and only 862 thumbs ups. What's going on here? Can I get a thumbs up? Do you love me? Do you love me? At least like me. A little thumbs up. That'd be great. All of these purple-haired mafia that like to talk about how we need to be like Sweden. Forget the fact that we're much bigger than Sweden. Forget all those other arguments. Let's take it down to the real tactical individual level. If you make the argument that you want us to be like Sweden, that's fine. You get to go first. I want you to strip down to your skivvies in the snow, run down to the lake with an axe, chop a hole in the ice, jump into the ice, into the water, and they call it knocking the fur off. Knock the fur off, hop back out, run a couple hundred yards up from the lake into the sauna, fire up the sauna. Should already be fired up. It takes 60 to 90 minutes to get it heated up. Fire up the sauna, sit there till, 140 degrees Fahrenheit or so, sweat it out for an hour, 90 minutes maybe. Come out of the sauna, run a couple hundred yards back to the lake, jump back into the freezing cold water, knock the fur off some more, then run back up into the sauna and sit there for another 60 to 90 minutes. And then you can towel off, and you can tell me how we need to be more like Sweden. Because if you're not willing to do that, I'm certainly not willing to give you 50% of my gross income. Okay? Okay. Moving right along. David Allen, come on now. Sergeant Storms is on here. Good morning, Sergeant Storms. AdventureFrontier.com. HR 127 is looking to make a lot of things illegal, including body armor, and this is a federal bill that has been submitted to a very liberal Congress and unfortunately has a high probability of going through. And so if you don't currently have body armor and you'd like to get some, you can check out AdventureFrontier.com. Links to all of this is in the description on Patreon and on YouTube. You can find links to everything we talk about in the show down there always. And you can use promo code BEARNATION at Adventure Frontier for $10 off your armor. You can see right here, AR-500 body armor, active shooter kit. The carrier and the 2 plates is $189. It's not $90,000. It's relatively affordable. They also have the best first aid kits in the world, the Bare Fac and the Bare Minimum. They got your Fluffy Bunny patches and stickers here as well. And they've got, if you click shop, they've got a bunch of stuff in the shop. You know, they've got the armor. They've got ballistic helmets right here. That looks like a Mitch-style helmet. They've got the active shooter response kit from us. Tourniquet holders, chainsaw first aid kit, emergency survival wrap. Probably would be nice to have one of those right now if you're in Texas. And, yeah, I mean, they've just got all the things. They've got these things at AdventureFrontier.com. Right here, hey, check this out. You could get a sleeping bag. Probably might want one of those as well. So, AdventureFrontier.com. Moving right along. Hey, and they're a great small business. We love them. They're awesome people. We've known them a long time. I know them personally. They're awesome people. So, and I'd also like to point out, nobody pays me to talk about their businesses on these live streams. These are people that we know, people that we do business with, people that support our ministry. They're personal friends of ours. And so when I make a recommendation like this, it's not because they've paid me to talk nice about them. We don't do that here. It's because I know these people and I know their hearts and they're good people. So please consider AdventureFrontier.com. Now, segment 3, the Great Reset and Systemic Racism, which we just talked about a bit, touched on with Shakespeare and France. And so if we go over here to intelligence.weforum.org, and you can find, if you just Google the Great Reset or DuckDuckGo or Bing or whatever, pick your poison, I don't care. Just research that way. You can find the Great Reset. It'll take you to weforum.org, World Economic Forum, and you can find this right here. And so this is systemic racism as they have it outlined here in their approach for the Great Reset. And as I've said many times before, while I don't agree with their approach or their lines of effort or their overall mission, I am absolutely jealous of how well they have lined this out. Now, they've had a lot more time to think about this than we have. They have far greater revenue resources than we have. But I encourage you strongly, and I mean this wholeheartedly, every single one of you within the sound of my voice, go check this out and start thinking about how do we counter these things? How do we counter these things? So with systemic racism here, we've got healthcare disparities, affecting change, cultural reinforcement of racism, like Shakespeare, defining racism. Now we have to define it. Access to leadership opportunities. You don't get to be a leader unless you agree that there's systemic racism and we need to do something about it. Access to justice and mass incarceration, and economic opportunity. You will sing to the tune on our sheet music or you won't sing at all. So if we look at the lines of effort here, we've got the Great Reset, of course, COVID-19 and systemic racism, global governance, Australia, South Africa, social innovation, leadership, taxation, agile governance, social justice, values, youth perspectives, the future of economic progress, right next to civic participation, arts and culture, retail, consumer goods and lifestyle, virtual and augmented reality, internet governance. Big tech wokeism, bro. Internet governance. The future of media, entertainment, and sport. Digital economy and new value creation. The future of consumption. This is all tied to systemic racism. Migration. The United States. Human rights. Workforce and employment. France. The role of religion in systemic racism. Take that First Amendment right that you have. There's 5 rights that are actually guaranteed in our First Amendment. Take that and throw it right out the window because that is a contributing factor to systemic racism, says they. Education and skills. Entrepreneurship. Oh, you want to work for yourself? That's cute. Here's our policy on systemic racism. Remember, we're the World Economic Forum. If you want to buy and sell, if you want to be playing in the sandbox, you're going to have to play by our rules. Corporate governance, behavioral sciences, public finance and social protection, justice and law, cities and urbanization, peace and resilience, real estate, financial and monetary systems, banking and capital markets, infrastructure, healthcare delivery, inclusive design, global health, precision medicine, global risks, mental health, and the United Kingdom. They have plans for all of this systemic racism. And I've pissed a lot of people off over the last few months, and I do it out of love when I say we have got to have a plan to not just deal with this, but to counteract this. Nature abhors a void. Somebody has to lead. Somebody has to make the rules. And these people, and I'm going to show you who these people are in a moment, these people have decided we're going to lead and these are the rules. And because they're executing on that, and the best that we can come up on our end is, hell no, or we got to do something. Yeah, I agree. What? I don't know. Me either, frankly. But I think it's important that we continue to talk about these things and honestly think about, honestly investigate, what do we do? What do we do to counter this? I'm working on it. I'm not ready to lay anything out yet, but I'm working on it. And I would encourage y'all to work on it as well. And I would encourage you, if you have something productive to add to the conversation, please email us. Please let me know. Because this has to be a cooperative effort. I'm nobody's grand poobah. I'm not the leader of this. Hell, I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room. But I can see that they are incredibly well organized and well funded, and they know what their goal is. I don't think we, as freedom-loving Americans and patriots, have clearly defined what the goal is yet. And I think it's about time we started doing that. Because once we understand what the mission is, then we can develop the objectives. Once we know what the objectives are, then we can develop the lines of effort. Once we know what the lines of effort are, then we can figure out the logistics to supply, to perform those lines of effort. Then you can mobilize people. Then you can actually have some type of option here. You can actually have a counterculture. You can actually execute on whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And I guess the last bubble that I'll burst is we cannot accomplish status quo. That's gone. That's over with. We know elections don't work anymore. That's been proven. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to agree with that. It's something like 78% of Americans acknowledge at least the possibility of election fraud in the most recent presidential election. So that's gone, at least at the federal level. What else is there? We have to execute locally, regionally, and coordinate nationally and globally. That's what these people are doing. They're just doing it in a way that makes my blood boil. It's the antithesis of individual responsibility and individual freedoms as protected by our Constitution. OODA loop, man. That Constitution only matters to half the country right now. And that half the country ain't running the country anymore. So what are we going to do about it? I don't know. I'm open to suggestion. And I think these are the conversations we need to be having to figure out, all right, what do we do? How do we push back? Now, who is the Great Reset? From Medium, and this is an older article, the 7th of June, 2020. But for those that are uninformed or underinformed, on Wednesday, 3 June 2020, while the rest of the world was preoccupied with a pandemic, a looming global depression, and race riots throughout the U.S. and other major cities around the World Economic Forum quietly announced their Great Reset initiative. The announcement came in the form of an online meeting streamed to 600 attendees at 2:30 in the afternoon Central European Summer Time. The meeting was hosted by HRH, the Prince of Wales, and Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. Other presenters included Kristalina Georgieva, chairwoman and managing director of the International Monetary Fund, who made $1 trillion available in lending capacity with conditions including a greener, smarter, fairer world. $24 billion has already been allocated to developing nations in Africa and Western Europe. So the International Monetary Fund made $1 trillion available immediately to begin funding the Great Reset. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Caroline Anstey, President and Chief Executive Officer of PACT and past Managing Director of the World Bank, Ajay Singh Banga, the President and Chief Executive Officer of MasterCard, who said during the meeting that, quote, "The idea of looking ahead really requires us to put cynicism away and start thinking about constructive participation. You're welcome to have a point of view and you're welcome to have a discourse, but being an armchair critic is really not acceptable," end quote. And I would agree with that statement, although, again, I don't agree with their ideal end state. I don't agree with their mission. Sharon Burrow, the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation and former President of the Australian Council of Trade Unions, Victoria Alonso Perez, UN Young Leader and founder and Chief Executive Officer of ChipSafer, a patented platform to electronically track cows remotely and autonomously, Ma Jun, Chairman of China's Green Finance Committee and co-chair of the G20 Green Finance Study Group, an initiative of the People's Bank of China and the Bank of England and the UN Environmental Program, Juliana Rodich, venture partner with Atlantica Ventures and founder of Yusha Shahidi, a crowdsourced data gathering platform, who said during the meeting that, quote, "There's an opportunity to center the reset on those who are most vulnerable, those on the edge where it only takes something like a pandemic to slide into poverty," end quote. Bernard Looney, Chief Executive Officer of BP, British Petroleum, Bradford Smith, President and Chief Legal Officer of Microsoft, Lord Nicholas Stern, Chair of the Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change and the Environment at the London School of Economics, and Feka Sijbesma, Honorary Chairman of the Royal DSM, a nutrition, health, and sustainable living company, and a member of Unilever's Corporate Responsibility Committee, and Adrian Monk, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum. Brief analysis of what they... So just little people. given to 600 virtual attendees. A brief analysis. Given the duration of the call, just over 1 hour, and the carefully worded statements made by the presenters, there were very few details provided. Here is a brief summary of the key takeaways. A massive post-COVID economic stimulus is required, and the IMF has already pledged $1 trillion. Early recipients are all developing nations. As, by the way, have you noticed with these massive stimulus packages in the United States, here's a pittance for you, dear indentured servant, from your governing body. Here's your $300, $600, $1,400, $1,600, $2,000. If you do the math on how much the government is allocating and divide it by the number of citizens in the country, you come up with, wow, there's a bunch of money going elsewhere. There sure is. To developing nations. It's a redistribution of wealth, these stimulus packages in the United States, from America to elsewhere. So, back to the article. A massive post-COVID economic stimulus is required, and the IMF has pledged $1 trillion. Early recipients are all developing nations. As is usually the case with the IMF, there will be crippling requirements and conditions for the debt relief and emergency financing, which was not disclosed on the call. The Great Reset focuses on new social contracts, which were not defined on the call or in the transition map. There is a focus on the digital divide with an intent to bring underserved communities online. The propaganda machine. But we have to be clear as well. It's a double-edged sword because here we are congregating on the propaganda machine right now, spreading truth as we understand it. So, back to the article. Considering the timing, high corporate representation, lack of government representation, and the relative lack of media coverage, the event raises all kinds of questions. During the call, participants raised frequently the need for trust, and Prince Charles said, "The imagination and will of humanity will need to be captured." The World Economic Forum announcement confirms one of the 4 postulates I've been developing since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, and this is from the article. With that as context, postulate 1, civilization, as it has progressed since the agricultural revolution, has overshot the carrying capacity of the planet. As a result of, and because of the globalized nature of the human species, we are in a late-stage civilizational collapse. If our species is to survive, a systemic reset of our human systems is required. I don't agree with that. I think the planet has a much higher carrying capacity than we currently are experiencing. But it's a good postulate. Postulate 2, considering how fragile our human systems are, it is natural that the 2020 coronavirus pandemic triggered a series of system resets, colloquially referred to as the new normal in mainstream media. Human systems are fragile, as we're seeing in Texas right now, but the veracity of the pandemic remains to be seen in my mind. I think it was created, and we've been talking about this for a year. It was created for what? To crash land the world's economies. Why? Because literally it says at the World Economic Forum that COVID-19 is the reason we need a great reset. They've wanted a great reset for a long time. They've just used COVID-19 as cover for action to do it, my opinion. Back to the article, postulate 3. There is a tension between 2 significant factions to birth their widely differing versions of a systemic reset. One is the Fourth Industrial Revolution, espoused by the World Economic Forum, technologists, and multinational corporates. And the other is the Global People's Revolution, championed by numerous activists and grassroots movements. Now, I've looked into the Global People's Revolution, and I'll just say this. What they want, from what I can find, which wasn't much, but what they want is very similar to what the World Economic Forum wants. What they disagree on is how to go about it. But neither of those outcomes are one that I would consider ideal. It's not anything that's going to be honorific of Judeo-Christian values. It's not anything that's going to be honorific of our founding documents. It's not anything that has anything to do with individual rights and responsibilities. No, it's all collectivism. It's just a matter of how you get there. The World Economic Forum is using technology and monetary policy to enact the Great Reset. The Global People's Revolution is essentially Antifa written wide on a global scale, from what I can find. And so I don't support either of those things. And then postulate 4, the Fourth Industrial Revolution's systemic reset is further ahead and far more organized than the Global People's Revolution's systemic reset. If successful, the Fourth Industrial Revolution reset will replicate many of the design flaws of our current human system. I can agree with that. My opinion, as has been espoused here over and over for the last 3 years, personal responsibility and voluntarism. We interact because we want to, not because we have to. And you don't get to take something from me and give it to somebody else. And so the article goes on, a question to ponder, is there a third middle way between the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Global People's Revolution that incorporates the best of both for the betterment of humanity? Now, I don't want either of those things. I don't think there's the best of both in either of those things. However, and then of course it's got here the Great Reset transition map, which I've been showing y'all on camera for weeks now. I think we do need a third option when it comes to what comes next, whatever the reset is that comes next. And we don't, we're not going to get up to 1.21 gigawatts and get the DeLorean to 88 miles an hour and travel back in time. That's not happening. But what comes next could be, if we make it so, could be something that reflects our foundational values as a society here in America. And we see how dangerous that is to the big they, because they're doing everything they can systemically to what's the word I'm looking here for? They are demonizing American values and the American way of life. And they're dividing us up into our little boxes using systemic racism and left versus right and blue versus red and black versus white and Jew versus Christian and blah, 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 blah. Because when we're all divided, when we're all individual fingers out here, we can't make a fist. And I think we need to respect the individuality of the fingers while figuring out how is it that we coalesce into a fist if needed. And again, I don't have the answer to that. But I'm willing to talk to anybody that has suggestions on it. Now, to the silver linings. Do we still have a live stream? Are people still here? People are still here. Wow. 1,300 of y'all. Bless y'all. Appreciate you. Thank you for the $5. Who gave me $5? Ducks, bless you. One viewer's 8-year-old son is back home and doing well after being diagnosed with pancreatitis. Awesome. I'm glad you're doing okay. And another viewer said, we finally paid down our credit debt. We still have a ways to go, but this is a big victory for us. We continue to actively improve our emergency supplies and stay hooked in with like-minded people locally. We are stacking food to the rafters still. We purchased a third dehydrator and a pressure canner to help speed up the process and diversify our options. We are prepping double the garden space that we had last year. My parents have also decided they want to have a garden and expanded their herds and flocks this year. This has been a long process, and I'm so excited to see the blessings that will come from their choice. Many of the in-laws are starting to follow along and expand or improve their own garden spaces, which is also very exciting. I'm 14 weeks along with our precious rainbow baby. So far, things seem well, but any prayers anyone feels like offering would be deeply appreciated. We are praying hard that the Father sees fit to allow this little one to stay earthside with us. Planning and preparedness has really paid off during this storm cycle. We didn't have to panic or run to the store or gas station. We just double-checked a few preps, pulled out a few more blankets, and went on with life. Thank you all for kicking our butts into action so we could experience this blessing of peace. Amen. Bless y'all. So, briefly, Grindstone Ministries is our charitable organization. I believe most of y'all know about Grindstone Ministries. Again, shout out to Prepper 101. We talked quite a bit about Grindstone and Caleb House last night on that live stream. If you didn't have an opportunity to see it, please go check it out. It was an awesome time. You can find us here at grindstoneministries.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter here. You can donate now here if you'd like to support us in the building of Caleb House, which is a facility for the rehabilitation of human trafficking survivors. And then you could get the t-shirt to support us, or you could also contact here if you'd like to send a check. The admins will let you know how to do that. And so, burping, I really appreciate y'all. I really, 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 really appreciate y'all, and thank y'all for supporting us at Grindstone Ministries so we can go be the hands and feet of Messiah and provide a biblical covering to orphans while breaking generational curses. So, thank you. That word is too cheap for what I feel for y'all, but thank you. Chaffee Oat Cigars, great cigars dedicated to ending human trafficking. And so if you're a cigar smoker and you're passionate about ending human trafficking, please check out chaffeeoatcollection.com. Links are down in the descriptions as always. Disaster Coffee, caffeinate with a purpose. Awesome people. They make an awesome product. I recommend for our preparedness-minded people, the bunker beans right here. They're green beans. You can, not like green beans, like canned green beans. They're beans that are green and also coffee that you can roast yourself in a skillet and then grind to make coffee when the world ends, man. So please check out disastercoffee.com. Amendment 1 Preparedness, the best prepper radio gear on the face of planet Earth. They have awesome products, a ham radio with a battery backup inside of an ammo can with the radio and the microphone and the speaker and the 12-volt supply source, all here weatherized inside of a can, $300 with the backup battery. Check that out. Absolutely awesome. You can find them at amendment1preparedness.com. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, sanctifiedsupplyco.com. The Grindstones North Division right here with Brother Hobie looking fabulous in his fur hat. Then you've got the North Division hoodie, the Stay Humble and Kind shirt, which is the unofficial uniform of the Bear Nation, and then the Iron Sharpens Iron t-shirt and hoodie, which directly benefit Grindstone Ministries. And we appreciate them deeply for all that they have done for us over the last year or so. And it just proves the point that, hey, when you feel the conviction from the Father to do something, in this case it was for me to reach out to them. And it began with them purchasing a sticker, I think, one sticker. And I saw their name, and I said, hey, Sanctified Supply Co., that's a cool name. I wonder if they know what that means. And then I checked them out, and they did, and they do. And we began to partner. I ordered a couple of T-shirts from them, and we started partnering with them, and they've been a major help behind the scenes with everything that we're doing with Grindstone. They come up with a lot of our logos and our designs, and they're just great people. So another American small business dedicated unto the Father. So if you are a human and you wear clothes, you might consider sanctifiedsupplyco.com. Now, Psalms 92. It is good to give thanks to Yahweh, the Lord your God, and to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your loving commitment in the morning and your trustworthiness each night, on 10 strings and on the harp, to the sounding chords of the lyre. For you have made me rejoice with your work, O Yahweh. I shout for joy at the works of your hands. O Yahweh, how great are your works! Your thoughts are very deep. A senseless man does not know, and a fool does not understand this. When the wrong springs up like grass, and all the workers of wickedness blossom, it is for them to be destroyed forever. But you, Yahuwah, are on high forever. For look, your enemies, O Yahuwah, for look, your enemies do perish. All the workers of wickedness are scattered. But you lift up my horn like a wild ox. I have been anointed with fresh oil, and my eye looks upon my enemies. My ears hear the evildoers who rise up against me. The righteous one flourishes like a palm tree. He grows like a cedar in Lebanon. For those who are planted in the house of Yahuwah flourish in the courts of our Elohim. They still bear fruit in old age. They are fresh and green, to declare that Yahuwah is straight, my rock, and in him is no unrighteousness. Amen. Good morning, Father Yah. Father, thank you yet again for another opportunity to come before your face, to humble ourselves in submission to you and your will for our lives. Father, thank you for the atoning sacrifice of Yeshua. Father, for washing us with the blood of your Son, so that we might live unto righteousness, and so that we might execute on your power and authority. We might come into your presence again at the end of an age. Father, thank you for striving with us and struggling with us and allowing us to overcome through Yeshua, and then teaching us how to rule with you, for making us Israel, which is so much more than a nation state on a map, Father, but truly your chosen people. Father, thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh and for the stirrings of the soul and the convictions that you're spreading all around on the globe, uniformly convicting so many different people of so many different walks of life, yet everybody led by the same Spirit. It is absolutely amazing to witness and to partake in, and you are incredibly awesome. And I thank you for allowing us to be a part of what you're doing. Father Yah, if there is anything within the sound of my voice that's not of you, I rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, and I command it to flee. Father Yah, fill us up with your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit. Father, for wisdom and discernment, first and foremost, to know truth from lies, to know good from bad, to lean not on our own understanding, but to seek your face and be bathed in your wisdom. Father, for strength and power and authority in the name of your Son, to do many mighty works that glorify you, not for our own well-being or our own ego or our own glory or esteem, but for you. That we would experience blessing and provision as a byproduct of obedience to the convictions that you put on our heart to go and be the hands and feet of your Son until he returns again and puts this world back to rights. Father, we beg mercy and healing for everybody within the sound of my voice that needs it. Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial healing, Father. I ask selfishly that your will would be done and that your will would be a restoration of the broken within the sound of my voice. Father, and for peace that surpasses all understanding. For calm, even in the storm. For a fortitude that is inexplicable. For if you be for us, who can be against us? You are incredible. You are awesome and powerful. And I thank you for reminding us of this every day. Father, thank you for creating miracles every day. Thank you for manifesting yourself in our lives every day. Thank you for redeeming us and for giving us an example of a righteous man to look upon and to follow, to walk in your ways and to come home again, to be allowed back into the presence of your greatness. Father, I lift up all these people to you and I lay them at your feet. I ask that you would continue to please protect them and provide for them and bless them. I ask that you would bless the work of our hands, the fruit of our body, the fruit of our fields, that you would bless our assemblies. That you would continue to be near to us. That you would be near to your people. Father, I thank you for this. I ask all these things in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. I appreciate y'all, Bear Nation. Thank you so much for supporting us everywhere. You guys are everywhere. You are everywhere we've ever needed you. Whether it's been YouTube or Patreon or Bethany House or Caleb House or Refuge Medical or Bible studies or prepping videos or men's retreats, you're always there. And I am so thankful for you, and I thank the Father for you, and I literally pray you have a blessed day. Shalom.